These markets are designed to not be sustainable, to kill companies so that they can be monopolized.
The marijuana industry is fighting the pharma industry.
There are marijuana companies coming into hemp on a daily basis.
I was in Vegas last week. You can see, because I'm still tired.
CHAMPS, right? All right.
Yes.
All right.
So I spent the whole weekend like on the couch trying to recover, and I'm still tired. Today's Tuesday, and I'm still tired. But I had a super interesting conversation with somebody, and I wanted to tell you about it. We'll call him Charlie. We had lunch together one day, and this was such a fascinating conversation. This guy is on the marijuana side. So he comes from Evil Marijuana. He was introduced to me by a neutral party, meaning somebody who works with hemp and marijuana.
Okay.
And so he introduced us, and it was so funny because when he was telling me about, the night before, he was telling me that he was having this lunch with Charlie. And I said, "Can I crash your lunch?" And he said, "Can you behave?" I said,
That's always a tough question.
I know. I was like, well, I'm going to try really hard just, to make you look good. I said, but I would love to hear the perspective from somebody in the marijuana space, like up close. So,
You mean you haven't heard that enough from people on LinkedIn yet?
well, the LinkedIn people are a bunch of keyboard warriors that like talk a lot of shit. But then, when I say, hey, feel free to call me or talk about it with me in person, they just never want to.
True.
So, I have no time for keyboard warriors. But this guy was great. So he started in with our favorite, the regulated cannabis industry. And then he'd throw in, intoxicating hemp. And I just kept correcting him. And I was like, it's intoxicating marijuana. Mm-hmm. The hemp industry is regulated. To his credit, and I loved this guy. He was great. His family's actually from Texas. I told him to call me when he comes for Thanksgiving. So he said he's going to call me. He was great. But the thing that was super great about him was that toward the end of the conversation, he started auto-correcting himself. And he'd say, the regulated cannabis, and then he'd say, the marijuana industry. He couldn't bring himself to get to like intoxicating marijuana, but he did start making the distinction. And I'll tell you all the things that I thought were interesting. At one point, he said the cannabis industry, or he said the whole industry is one cannabinoid soup that comes from the hemp industry away from everything falling apart. And I said, wow, that is a bold statement.
Explain.
Well, according to him, somebody on the hemp side, because the marijuana side apparently are a bunch of angels, so somebody on the hemp side is going to make some kind of cannabinoid soup, and we don't do synthetic anything. We don't sell synthetic products. He's talking about like something that's created in a lab, and then somebody's going to get sick. And
that happened 10 years ago.
And it's going to be all the hemp industry's fault.
Well, 10 years ago was K2 and Spice.
That was more than 10 years ago, wasn't it?
Possibly. But it was a while back. That's already happened.
Well.
And it was pre-hemp.
Well, he was laying all the blame for anything that goes wrong with this industry at the feet of the hemp space. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, when there was all that lung EVALI stuff, that was all marijuana vapes.
Yeah,
I said the hemp industry didn't even exist.
Yep.
And so he's quiet for a beat, and he's like, but that was the illegal market. And I'm like, it's all an illegal market. My
understanding was also that a lot of those came out of California.
Yes.
Which is
shocker.
A state legal, federally
Correct.
illegal
Which,
market.
Oh my gosh, has people getting sick from pesticides and dubious things that are being used in farming.
Not much has changed.
Right. So why is it the hemp industry that's going to ruin everything when the marijuana side's already doing such a great job with their shitty pesticides and chemicals and not testing for stuff? Chinese pesticides. Sorry, China. No, I'm not sorry. But I found it fascinating that from his perspective, anything that's going to go wrong to ruin the industry is going to come from the hemp side. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's madness. And what's funny is, as we're seeing this play out in a variety of different states, a lot of the accusations made against hemp, if you look at the last couple of years, all the arguments of some of the articles I've seen saying some of the ingredients that have been used in hemp were ridiculous. I remember seeing an article saying that the hemp industry used like pool cleaners and whatever other nonsense the marijuana groups were coming up with to make us look bad. But now when it comes out, it's all, Chinese pesticides in the state legal, federally illegal markets. Nobody wants to talk about it.
No, we don't want to talk about that.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
No, because it's not a good look.
And by the way, we've been testing for those pesticides specifically. We've been testing for a lot of that stuff that they got busted for, that a lot of the companies in California got busted for. We've already been testing for those products for over, I think, 2 years now. We've been testing for those.
Well, we haven't even talked about it, but California workers are treated poorly. These illegal grows in California import like slave labor to work the fields, like literally work the fields.
Yeah.
Like the marijuana industry has so many problems, but it's incredible to me that somebody from the marijuana side is like, no, anything that goes wrong, it's going to be on the hemp side.
Well, what's interesting too about the marijuana industry specifically in a variety of different states, and it's really the same issues. I think I just saw an article. What state was it? I can't remember what state it was, but I just saw an article talking about how they're losing 50% of their dispensaries. They're just going out of business.
Michigan, 6 years after their legalization, dispensaries are closing across that state.
Tax revenue from the adult use sales.
But now the city has lost almost half of the marijuana businesses it had in 2022, closing 4 of their 9 facilities in the past year.
State regulations, the IRS is taxing us different than any other industry.
So
yes, I think you sent that to me.
Yeah, so the way the marijuana industry is operating right now is it's overregulated, overburdened, overtaxed, and these companies are struggling to stay alive. So you find places like Oklahoma where a lot of the marijuana companies are selling on the black market, the illicit market, to essentially facilitate staying in business because they don't have a choice. The state legal marijuana operations are not set up to be sustainable. That's true in Texas as well. Right? That's why these companies are having to bring in investor money every 2-3 years to stay alive because it's not sustainable. These markets are designed to not be sustainable, to kill companies so that they can be monopolized.
That's a good segue because he said, listen, we mostly agree. He said, it seems like, we're getting along well and we agree on things. And then at one point, and he did share his sea bass kebab with me, which was delicious. It was delicious. So he says, the regulations for marijuana are here. He says, and the regulations for hemp are here.
Huh?
He says, what we need to do is bring them here. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, put that hand right back down. I'm like, I don't understand why you guys are so obtuse. Why do you want to make it harder for us instead of just making it easier for you? I'm like, so let's take your hand and let's just bring that marijuana hand down.
Show me the Farm Bill equivalent for marijuana.
There is none.
Exactly.
Also, this was said by somebody, and again, I like this guy a lot, who has not researched any hemp regulation in any state.
None of them have.
None of them. He says, so there's no regulation. I'm like, what are you talking about?
This is why I stopped arguing with people on LinkedIn because it's maddening.
LinkedIn loonies.
You get people arguing from the marijuana perspective that literally have no clue about hemp, and they just say it's illegal and unregulated. And in the second you even try to show them anything, they lose their minds. And so I've kind of given up on it. I was calling people prohibitionists there for a bit, and then they would just block me, and I've just given up on it. It's not worth my time.
I saw a marijuana guy whining, and it might have been in response to something you put in about being a prohibitionist. And he's like, oh, I'm a prohibitionist. I've been supporting marijuana forever, and now I'm a prohibitionist. Like, he didn't understand the concept of prohibition.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really basic. There were people that fought against marijuana, all the way from the 1920s to current. There are people that still fight against marijuana and fight against cannabis. Those people are prohibitionists. So just because you're in marijuana now and you're fighting another segment of cannabis, now trying to make that illegal, you're a prohibitionist. How are you not? And so when you call somebody that,
they don't get it.
But
they don't get it. It's unbelievable. How can you be so myopic in your view of, like, you're a business person. How can you be so myopic in your view? Right?
Well, that being said, we are starting to see, I think we are past sort of the initial phase of marijuana companies coming over, sort of the first adopters. It's now turning into an avalanche. there are marijuana companies coming into hemp on a daily basis. We're talking big companies, we're talking small companies. We had a comment on one of our videos. Lewis can post it up and show the actual comment, the person's name, and thank you for leaving that comment. But if I'm not mistaken, she said that her business within 90 days, her hemp business had surpassed her marijuana business like fourfold.
Yeah.
In 90 days.
Yeah.
And this is what we've been saying, and this is what we've been trying to educate the marijuana industry on, and they're finally doing it. They were kicking and screaming in the beginning, but they're finally doing this and finally understanding that what we're saying is that you can essentially do what the philosophy, what the concept was of state legal marijuana. Hemp is sort of the iteration of what it was supposed to be.
Yes.
Right? And so marijuana never reached its full potential, and it more than likely never will. Hemp, on the other side, because it's federally legal, because it's state legal, there's interstate commerce is legal. You can get merchant processing for it. There's a variety of different things. Hemp, you get banking.
Yeah.
Like hemp is a big deal, and it's what marijuana was intended to be. Although it never really evolved into that. But we're at the point where it's becoming fairly obvious that if you're in marijuana and you're still anti-hemp, you're probably going to go out of business, and the people going into hemp are just going to leave you by the wayside.
What's interesting is that he also brought up, and he's not the first person to bring it up, but this comment came up about, well, it's so difficult to do business, banking, and, we had no idea. Of course you had an idea. You went into a business that's federally illegal where you couldn't bank. Everybody knew that. There was no surprise.
That's a level of ignorance that nobody has. Anybody that's gone into marijuana fully understood what they were getting into. Now, that being said, it's okay to pivot. And this is where it gets interesting, where you have people that have chosen not to pivot and just go down the anti-hemp path of, we're just going to get rid of hemp. That doesn't solve the marijuana industry issues. Those companies that are going out of business, even if you get rid of hemp, they're still going out of business.
Yes.
It's not hemp that's causing problems in marijuana. It's the regulations and it's the taxes and all the craziness that's involved with it. That's what's putting these companies out of business. Hemp is not putting anybody out of business.
Well, you know who else is trying to put them out of business? Apparently, and I did not know this, so this was super interesting. He said that the marijuana industry is fighting the pharma industry, and that pharma, because marijuana is dealing with sleep issues and like anxiety issues, and it is pain relief. It's eating into pharma money.
Yep.
And so he was telling me that they are fighting pharma initiatives in states to eliminate flavors, to lower milligrams.
That's where this stuff gets really, really fascinating in these different states. And I mean, it's why you're seeing, I can't remember the name of the parent company of Corona, but the parent company of Corona invested a ridiculous amount of money in one of the big MSOs. And we're going to start to see that. I'm surprised. Pharma's a little bit different. They don't tend to do acquisitions. They tend to just kill.
Correct.
They have a scorched earth policy of just kill everybody.
Correct.
Alcohol's a little bit different. And alcohol will do acquisitions, and they have done acquisitions. Pharma is dangerous, though. And we came from the vapor space in a previous life, and we've been in that industry. And I know you specifically had your interactions with pharma, and they are terrifying.
They are.
They are probably
the
most well-funded lobbying teams in the world, and they get what they want. And so if you're a target to them, good luck.
The United States is one of only 2 countries that allows pharma advertising on TV. The advertising on TV in the United States is number 1. Pharma advertising is number 1.
I don't watch much TV anymore, but the second you turn it on, it's pharma commercials.
I was in the hotel, and I was kind of like working, and I had the TV on, and so like commercials and that kind of thing. Every commercial is for pharmaceuticals. So I was like, holy crap.
There's nobody else even advertising anymore.
It's unbelievable how much pharmaceutical advertising there is.
Ask your doctor if Bidurion can help.
Talk to your doctor to find out if prescription Chantix is right for you.
Today we have Predex.
Take your Toprol XL every day.
Take care with
And Cresta.
It's fine, it's tenazidine. Come on, it was prescribed by a doctor.
So you tell me, if marijuana is better for you, for example, for sleep, then what's a sleep medicine? Ambien. Do you think that there's going to be any news about how that's better for you on advertising that's controlled by pharmaceutical companies? Do you think you're going to see that on, Fox or CBS or something like that?
That's a valid point. A lot of the media has advertising, large amounts of advertising revenue coming from big pharma, and in a large way they control the narrative.
Of course they do.
So yeah, I mean, if marijuana is on their short list of things to kill,
that's correct.
That's highly dangerous for that industry.
Apparently marijuana doesn't want flavors and they want lower milligrams. So you would think that the marijuana folks would be like, hey, hemp people, let's get together, right? Let's work on this together. But no, they're out there with their sunk cost fallacy and just, trying to make it work, which it will never work. So I think the marijuana side is going to have to choose a side, right?
What's funny is I'm still having people argue with me online that the hemp industry they'll question me when I say the hemp industry is bigger than the marijuana industry, the illicit marijuana industry. I'll get questions on it and people are saying, prove it. I mean, it's fairly public data at this point. Bo Whitney's report that came out, and it's pretty obvious that, that was 2022 and the hemp industry had already outpaced marijuana. And this industry has grown substantially since then, so I don't even think it's close anymore. I would love to see an updated report from Bo Whitney when the data comes out and see how far the disparity is now, because it's not even close.
So I think it's to use metaphors or analogies, you fell off the horse, get on a different horse. You tripped on the catwalk while you were modeling, just get up and keep going, just pick yourself up and pivot and let it go.
Your horse has a bum leg.
Your horse has a bum leg.
I think that's usually when they shoot the horse.
Oh, I don't want to go to animal violence. Why?
Just saying.
Anyway, the point is it's sunk cost. There cannot be another reason for why they're hanging on by their fingertips, right? In this industry that is just, so now you have pharma coming after you.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that.
All right, we got to start over.